Hi everyone, and welcome to the final video in this series looking at hot deserts. I wanted to do sort of twofold today. So we're going to look at desertification as a process, which is a really key challenge in hot desert environments. I wanted to look at what it is, what causes it, and then a couple of solutions. So there's quite a lot that's kind of compacted into this video. It is a little bit of a sort of one-stop shop, but hopefully this will give you the key bits of knowledge that you would need for this topic. So, as we know, our hot deserts are very, very hostile environments. They are receiving less than 250 millimetres of rainfall per year. They have very, very hot temperatures during the day, very, very cold, potentially sort of freezing temperatures at night time. They are areas of high pressure, so they bring with them some very, very dry, arid conditions. And desertification is a result of those extreme temperatures. So desertification is ultimately the process of desert areas expanding beyond their current margins. So desertification is essentially the outward growth of deserts. So where you've got a desert, it's expanding beyond those edges. It's growing ultimately, if you like. Okay. Very, very often this is due to human activity. It's not an entirely natural process. It can happen naturally, but generally what we tend to find is it is humans that are driving or accelerating this rate of desertification, this key process. This basically happens where land is exposed to water and wind erosion, which means that the topsoil is eroded away, leaving behind a barren wasteland. If you've watched the first video, you will be very much aware that hot desert soils are very thin, very poor, very infertile anyway. So if we've got a scenario whereby we are deforesting or where we have particularly high winds and a lot of that top layer of the soil is stripped away, then what we're left with isn't a lot of organic matter. That soil is not very well binding together, and therefore it's very susceptible to things such as wind and water erosion. So, a couple of key things to consider. I spoke earlier about human causes and physical causes of desertification. So, some of our human causes, then, as you might expect, deforestation. Okay, so the removal of trees, cutting down of trees, because what then happens is those roots that are binding the soil together, obviously, are no longer there. Also, the nutrient cycle. There's very little organic matter that's going back into the soil in order to kind of help with that fertility. And also a lot of vegetation provides shade from things like wind erosion as well. Again, if that's not there, it's not protecting, it's not helping. Very similar with overgrazing. So we know that a key opportunity is farming, cattle farming. And what we also have said in the previous video is that those farmers are nomadic in their practices. So they will move across the desert throughout the year. So they will find an area of land that's got some grass that their cattle can graze on, and then they'll move somewhere else once the animals have kind of eaten all of that and destroyed all of that. Mining obviously is a huge one. It impacts the physical landscape, again causing erosion. We may undertake the task of mining, we may deforest some areas. So again, you can see that there's a bit of an interrelationship there. And it's the same with urban developments as well. In order to urbanise an area, we may deforest that area. So physical causes, drought, so periods of time where there's no rainfall, and we know that that absolutely happens in deserts. Okay, soils then become dry, plants may die, areas may become infertile. Changes in temperature, again, we've got a lot of temperature variation throughout the year, but also day to day, hot days, cold nights. Levels of precipitation, very, very low. So again, drought, dry land, etc. An increased wind strength. Sandstorms can be quite prominent. Wind erosion, therefore, very, very prominent, very thin. Soil that isn't really bound together particularly well and is quite poor quality. Anyway, there's going to be an impact there also. So there's three kind of strands that we can talk about in how we combat desertification. Now, we're not going to stop it entirely. It isn't a solely reversible process, but there are a couple of things that can be done and are being done to try and reduce the rate and reduce the impacts as well. So water and soil management, tree planting or afforestation, and the use of appropriate technology as well. So the first one that we're going to look at is water and soil management. So irrigation in deserts can sometimes cause rapid evaporation to take place, which can damage soils. What happens a lot is that because of the very quick rate of evaporation, we have water that may be on the surface, and when that water evaporates, it will leave behind certain things, certain materials. So, for example, salts. Salts is a big one. So, the water will evaporate and it will leave behind salt deposits. That's the word I was looking for a moment ago. And obviously, that's not particularly helpful to the soil, and therefore it damages those soils. So, we can create a couple of things. Ponding banks, so areas of land that are enclosed to store water. Okay, they can help. As well as contour traps, so embankments that are constructed to prevent soil being washed away during a period of heavy rainfall. So contour lines, for example, show the height, shape and relief of the land, or the relief of the land, should I say. These contour traps are built so that if there's a steep area of land, when it rains, because of the soil not being very well compacted together and quite poor, it traps the soil so it doesn't move anywhere. It tries to kind of prevent soil erosion. Ponding banks as well, areas of land are enclosed to store water, trying to stop that water from sort of going anywhere and just leaving behind salty deposits, which again are not at all positive for the soil. And atriplex shrubs are planted to also help prevent soil erosion. So looking at the vegetation and trying to consider actually what vegetation would be well suited, what hardy vegetation would be well suited within these particular areas to kind of try and help prevent soil erosion and just bind the soil and shelter the soil together a little bit. Okay, stone walls, which we'll look at as part of appropriate technology as well, are also built to try and stop water running down slopes. So again, helping to store the water, but also prevent that kind of soil erosion and any sort of mini landslides from happening as well. Tree planting then is another strategy, or again afforestation. So tree planting afforestation is an effective way to help prevent desertification. So trees, obviously, with their roots, help to bind soil together. Leaves and branches of the trees act a little bit like an umbrella, so provide shelter from the wind and also the rain. And in the Thar Desert, again, which is an example that we've previously looked at, a Great Green Wall has also been constructed. So again, helping to bind the soil together, helping to kind of prevent any wind erosion and soil erosion as well. Can also help with things like germination processes, so trying to attract wildlife, maybe some key pollinators, and that can then also help to kind of spread that Great Green Wall, make it cover a larger expanse of land. People can then reclaim that land back and also maybe use it for other kind of agricultural practices as well. So that's tree planting or afforestation. Another technique then is what we would call appropriate technology. So again, appropriate technology is a process of using cheap, sustainable and available materials which are suitable for a local community. So things that people can actually kind of use. Don't think that because it's got the word technology in there that it has to be advanced or modern. It really, really doesn't. And you'll see that in some of these examples here. So, for instance, we could talk about stone bunds, which are basically walls, so those stone walls I spoke about earlier, used to reduce soil erosion. Again, I've left this image here because actually the green wall, the afforestation process, could be advanced appropriate technology as well. So, it helps to stop soil erosion. When rain washes down the slopes, the rock walls prevent the movement of soil and water, helping again to improve kind of crop growth. For these people in this area of hot deserts, let's take the Thar for example, they might not be the wealthiest of people. So actually, what they have available to them is highly useful. It's cheap. It's readily available. It's something that they can use, and they don't really need any training, or they might need a little bit of training. Could be the same with sort of drought-resistant crops, for example, as well. So it's all these different things that help and support people. So appropriate technology doesn't have to be anything groundbreaking, doesn't have to be anything expensive. It's cheap, it's suitable and it's sustainable for that particular area. So thinking about some of the questions that we could ask or be asked, okay? So you could get in an exam a nice simple question, what is desertification, okay? What is desertification? What is it as a process? The growth of deserts beyond their current margins is how we need to think of it, okay? How can afforestation help reduce the process of desertification? So think about those green walls, think about trees, roots, reducing soil erosion, helping to bind the soil together and creating that little bit of shelter to prevent wind erosion as well. And then lastly, explain how water and soil management can reduce the risk of desertification. So again, thinking about kind of some of those strategies. So building of stone walls, the use of those atriplex shrubs, thinking also about Great Green Wall, for example, afforesting an area and also encouraging other pollinators and germinators to advance that greenery. So again, we sort of scale back that desertification process almost, if you like, okay? That would be another really, really useful strategy to talk about as well, or to bring in to that question also.